In a bustling city filled with noise, lights, and never-ending competition, lived a young man named Kabir. On the surface, Kabir had everything: expensive clothes, the latest gadgets, a car that turned heads, and hundreds of followers praising his lifestyle on social media. But when the screens went dark and the lights turned off, Kabir often stared at the ceiling, feeling empty. From a young age, Kabir believed that to be valued, he had to stand out through what he wore, what he owned, and what he did for a living. At school, the most popular kids were the ones who always had the latest video games, the trendiest sneakers, and the flashiest clothes. They were the ones everyone wanted to be around. Kabir, on the other hand, wore simple outfits and carried a second-hand backpack. His father worked long hours just to provide the basics: food on the table, a roof over their heads, and school fees. Though Kabir never went without, he quietly wished he had more. Not because he needed it, but because he thought having more would finally make him enough in the eyes of others. So Kabir made himself a promise: I'll never feel small again. I'm going to make millions of dollars and buy everything I need to be enough. As he grew older and got a job in a corporate firm, Kabir spent almost everything he earned: branded watches, designer shoes, fancy dinners. Every time he bought something new, he felt a rush, a momentary high. He felt seen, valued, important. But that feeling never lasted. One Sunday morning, Kabir was walking through the old part of town when he passed by a small antique store. The shop seemed out of place amidst the modern buildings. Curious, he stepped inside. Dusty shelves lined with forgotten treasures greeted him. But one thing caught his eye: a large old mirror standing quietly in the corner. There was something unusual about it. The frame was made of carved wood, and in the corner, a line was etched faintly: "To see clearly, look within." The shopkeeper, an elderly man with warm eyes, walked up and said, "That mirror doesn't just show your reflection, it shows what you carry inside." Kabir laughed lightly. "What does that mean?" The shopkeeper just smiled and said, "Take it home, no charge. Maybe it'll help you more than you know." Amused and intrigued, Kabir brought the mirror home and placed it in his room. That night, he stood in front of it, expecting to see his usual confident self. But what he saw shocked him. The reflection didn't show his expensive clothes or flashy watch. Instead, it showed a tired young man with a heavy heart. His eyes looked lost, his posture slouched. The room around him looked plain, dull, empty. Panicked, he checked his phone screen. It showed him as usual. But the mirror didn't lie. Every time he looked into it, it reflected something deeper: his feelings of unworthiness, the loneliness he tried to hide behind material things, and the fear that he was not enough just as he was. Over the next few days, Kabir became obsessed with the mirror. He tried wearing more expensive outfits, updating his room decor, even posting more content online, but the reflection never changed. Finally, one evening, overwhelmed and frustrated, he returned to the antique shop. The old shopkeeper was sipping tea quietly. Kabir burst out, "That mirror, it's broken. No matter what I wear, what I buy, it shows me looking weak, empty." The shopkeeper looked at him calmly and said, "It's not broken, son, it's honest." Kabir sat down, defeated. "But I've worked so hard to be more than I was, to be admired, respected. Why do I still feel like I'm not enough?" The shopkeeper gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let me tell you a story. Once, high in the mountains, there lived a mighty eagle, with wings strong enough to soar above the clouds and eyes sharp enough to spot prey from miles away. He ruled the skies. But despite all his strengths, the eagle felt something was missing. One day, he flew past a lake where he saw a group of peacocks dancing. Their feathers glimmered in brilliant blues and greens, captivating every creature nearby. The eagle, watching from above, thought, "Everyone adores their beauty. I wish I looked like them. Maybe then I'd be admired too." So the eagle began collecting fallen peacock feathers. He tucked them into his wings, attached them to his tail, and even placed some on his head. He looked ridiculous, but he didn't care. "Now I'll be noticed," he thought. But something changed. The added feathers made flying harder. He couldn't glide as smoothly, couldn't rise as high. He kept trying to look more like a peacock, believing it made him better. One day, as he struggled to take off with all the extra feathers weighing him down, he met an old turtle resting on a rock. The turtle looked up and said, "Why are you grounding your wings with feathers that aren't yours?" The eagle sighed. "I thought if I looked like a peacock, I'd be more admired, more valuable." The turtle smiled gently and said, "You were born to touch the sky. Peacocks dance on the ground, but you can fly beyond mountains. See what no one else can see. Travel where others can't go. Why exchange your sky for someone else's colors?" The eagle paused. In trying to become admired, he had forgotten who he truly was. He gently removed each feather one by one, and with a deep breath, he spread his wings and rose into the sky, higher and freer than he had been in a long time. The shopkeeper looked into Kabir's eyes and said, "You see, like the eagle, you've tried to earn your worth by collecting feathers, things, attention, praise. But your value was never outside you. It was always within. You just needed to see it." The story echoed in Kabir's heart. He remembered all the times he doubted himself, compared himself, and tried to prove his worth through possessions and appearance. He realized he had been trying to hide his feelings of not being enough. He looked up and asked quietly, "But how can I overcome this feeling of emptiness inside?" The shopkeeper smiled warmly and said, "Remember these 3 things. 1. True worth isn't measured by possessions but by purpose. You are not defined by what you own but by the way you live, how you treat others, especially when they can do nothing for you, and the lessons you carry forward. 2. The people who truly care about you aren't drawn to your status or possessions. They value your presence, your time, and the moments you share together just being yourselves. The people who matter most won't remember the things you gave them, but the way you made them feel, the memories you built together, and the time you never tried to buy. 3. Most importantly, you were already enough the moment you were born. Your worth doesn't need to be earned, only remembered." That night, Kabir stood in front of the mirror again. But this time, he looked not at what was wrong, but at what was real. He saw a boy who had endured ridicule, who had worked hard, who had been kind, who had dreamed big. A boy who had always been enough but didn't know it. He smiled. In the reflection, his posture shifted. His eyes had a spark. The room didn't look so empty anymore. From that day, Kabir changed. He still enjoyed nice things, but he no longer depended on them to feel worthy. He stopped chasing validation and started building genuine connections. He volunteered on weekends, mentored younger colleagues, and began journaling daily to reconnect with who he truly was. Years later, Kabir became known not for his wealth, but for his wisdom. People admired his calm confidence and authenticity, and in his home, the old mirror still stood, no longer a reflection of doubt, but of someone who had finally seen his own worth. Like Kabir, remember, you are not defined by the amount of money in your bank account, your job title, your clothes, your car, or your followers. You are enough, not because of what you own, but because of who you are. When self-doubt creeps in, pause and remember, you are enough. You were always enough. You will always be enough. Please like, subscribe, and comment for more inspiring stories.